Hello and welcome to the Nexus. Today we're looking at Kanye West. He's the one on the right. One of the biggest rappers and music producers in the world is either having a meltdown or he's some kind of genius, currently dominating the news by declaring his love for President Donald Trump. Even more alarmingly, he's now saying 400 years of slavery looks like a choice to him. Is he serious? Is this marketing for his new album? Or is he warming up for a run at the presidency, Kanye 2024? He tweeted it. Who really knows? All that and more coming up right now in the Nexus. Hello, I'm Matthew Moore, and today in the Nexus, it's Mr. West and Mr. West Wing, aka Kanye and Trump. Why can't they be friends? We'll find out with Musa Al-Gharbi. He's from Columbia University. He says he's not surprised Kanye supports Trump and says he shouldn't be hated for it. Jason Nichols is a lecturer in African American studies. He's boycotting Kanye's music, for now at least, and thinks his stance goes against racial equality. And DeAndra Smith is a Trump supporter and campaigner who thinks Kanye is guilty of at least being inaccurate. Well, before we get to all their opinions, let's tell the story of the world's greatest odd couple. And our first report, Kanye loves Trump.
I told y'all I didn't vote, right? But if I would have voted, I would have voted on Trump.
Kanye West, he loves Trump. He loves Trump. He's a good man. We've been friends for a long time. Kanye West, I love him.
Now in the age of social media, Kanye West's friendship with Donald Trump seems to be too much for some to handle.
Kanye West turning Hollywood and the liberal music world upside down. The rapper tweeting, "You don't have to agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him."
Calling the president my brother, claiming he and Mr. Trump are both dragon energy.
He followed up by sharing a picture of himself wearing a Make America Great Again hat signed by the president.
This became a front news story across every single platform that you could possibly dream of, and that is only because he is not allowed to think differently as a black man.
He lost 9.2 million followers in 7 minutes when he posted that hat.
Get this, West has gained an additional 10.5 million followers. There was talk about him losing followers, quite the opposite.
Kanye West gets it. He gets it. He gets it.
West is no stranger to political controversy.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Kanye West has a lot of people wondering if he cares about black people.
Kanye West has always been an outlier in terms of having his own mind and thinking his own thoughts. They told Kanye that he couldn't be in fashion, so he created an entire brand. They told Kanye that he couldn't like Kim, so he married her.
To see Kanye go from someone who had the courage to stand up and say, George Bush doesn't care about black people, which is a courageous moment of protection and defense of black people and the vulnerable in general, to go to that, to defending someone whose campaign was predicated upon white supremacy, white nationalism, erasure of immigrant voices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
His friend, Chance the Rapper, appeared to defend West, tweeting, quote, "Black people don't have to be Democrats."
And I just assumed he was a Democrat and a globalist. Watching him with Trump, actually listening to what he says and seeing what he does, he has a lot of courage and is a maverick.
Is it his tax policy? Is it his immigration policy? His Trump's decision to withdraw from the Iran deal? Any of the, was it specific about why he agrees with the president?
No.
So Kanye West, I love him. I love him. I love him.
Well, we have a lot of ground to cover. Let's start with DeAndra Smith. DeAndra, very specifically now, why is it Kanye loves Trump?
I think Kanye understands that President Trump's goal is to get America focused back on America and off of everybody else. Oh. When your own country is sinking and dying, you have to at some point shift and bring things back up to where they need to be for the sake of the people. America should be about America first right now.
So you're saying it's about
We're
politics
in everybody else's
and
business.
the issues. Okay, let's go to Jason Nichols. Jason, do you have a slightly more skeptical view, perhaps? Why do you think Kanye loves Trump?
I think it's, some of it is economic. I think that they have the same economic interests. I also think Kanye West is just a contrarian. I think sometimes he just wants to go against the crowd and wants to stand out. So he thinks, you know, you like Trump or you don't like Trump. I like Trump. So that's where he's going with that.
Very interesting. Okay, and Musa, what is it about Trump that Kanye admires so much?
Well, we don't have to guess about it. He talked about it. If you go to his website, it's him talking to T.I., and T.I. asked him, "Why? Like, so what is it about Trump that you like?" And he said the thing he likes about Trump is that you know, Trump is like he has this non-political way of communicating with people, and for someone like him, who has no background in politics, who's an entertainer and stuff, to be able to be president of the United States showed Kanye that he is also able.
You're absolutely
to
right.
do
We actually have that.
other people are too.
We actually have that little rap battle between Kanye and T.I. to hand. Let's have a listen.
I know Obama was 7 cents, but ever since Trump won, it proved that I could be president.
Yeah, you can, it would count though. Don't they go against the teachers that Ye taught folks?
See, that's the problem with this damn nation. All blacks gotta be Democrats, man. We ain't made it off the plantation.
Who you choose as your political party? You represent dudes that seem cruel and cold-hearted, with blatant disregard for the people who put you in position. Don't you feel an obligation to them?
I feel an obligation to show people new ideas, and if you want to hear them, they go to right here. Make America great again. Had a negative perception. I took it, wore it, rocked it, gave it a new direction. Added.
Oh, let's go back to Jason. Jason, are you sure you can boycott Kanye? Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, no, the album sounds really good. That song is great. I think it's very honest. And one thing I will never question about Kanye West is his honesty, and he talks about a lot of his own issues and his own insecurities. However, as T.I. pointed out, he is supporting someone who is working to the detriment of people that look like him. And so,
okay, but what about the point that Kanye makes at the top, which is that Trump gives him hope that he can be president one day because this man, Trump, is an outsider who made it?
Because he's a celebrity? Is that what gives him hope?
No, because he wasn't a Republican, he wasn't a Democrat particularly, he wasn't part of the political establishment.
He identifies as a Republican, and I think, you know, the one thing that he had is wealth, and certainly a whole lot more wealth than Kanye West. But if Kanye wants to be president, that's fine, but have something that you stand for, and certainly stand for the community that stood for you throughout your career.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, you mentioned that he might be doing this because he's a contrarian. It seems that there is some evidence for that. Let's go back to that interview with TMZ.
What happened last week with the Make America Great Again hat? What are you trying to do with the message you're sending?
Well, it was really just my subconscious. It was a feeling I had, you know, like people were taught how to think, we're taught how to feel. We don't know how to think for ourselves. We don't know how to feel for ourselves. People say feel free, but they don't really want us to feel free. And I felt a freedom in, first of all, just doing something that everybody tells you not to do. I just love Trump. That's my boy. Like, you know, it's like so many rappers, you'll look at a video of Snoop Dogg loving Trump, but then he get in the office and now they don't love him. Like, Trump is one of rap's favorite people, right?
Look, DeAndra, is he doing this just to be contrarian, or does he have some sympathies with Trump's actual political aims?
I don't think he's doing it just to be a contrarian. I believe that he spoke inaccurately about the whole slavery thing, you know, 400 years of slavery. What he was actually trying to say, very simply, was that the African-American mindset is still stuck where we are still slaves. We're slaves to ourselves now. We are slaves to our own mindsets, our own behaviors. I think that's what he was really trying to say.
The point about the Democrats, do you think it's time to move away from the Democrats then? They've let them down?
Oh, yes. There's no doubt in my mind that the Democratic policies and that whole Democratic machine has been a mess in our urban areas and in our inner cities. There was one particular part of that song where I believe it was T.I. that said, what about his responsibility to the people? Well, what about having the people start having more responsibility for themselves? Why is it that we're always sitting back waiting on the government to give us and to do this and to do that? Where is our responsibility to ourselves? And I think that's what he's talking about when he was talking about slavery.
DeAndra,
we are slaves in our own minds.
We're going to come to that point. No, DeAndra, we're going to come to that point a little later. Look, you know, Kanye and Trump make a similar point when it comes to Barack Obama and the Democratic Party generally. Here's a tweet from a couple of days ago. So Obama was in office for 8 years and nothing in Chicago changed. And then as far as Hillary goes, here's Kanye explaining during his concert in 2016, you may remember that amazing little rant, why she lost the election.
It's a new world, Hillary Clinton. It's a new world. Feelings matter. It's a new world, Barack. It's a new world, JC. Get ready to have a field day, press. Get ready. Get ready. Because the show's over.
Well, remember, he began that rant after just a couple of songs and then he abruptly ended it. And the question is, does Kanye have a point? Have the Democrats let black people in America down? Musa?
Yeah, so to that, I'll say one thing that's noteworthy if you look at the election data is that Trump actually did win a larger share of the African-American vote of any Republican since '04. Yeah, he actually won less of the white vote than Romney did. So there's something interesting there. And I should add, but Kanye's affiliation with the Republicans goes back before that. During the primaries, him and Ben Carson were talking. He called Carson brilliant. Carson called him a genius. And they were talking back and forth for a while. So it's not just Trump, I should add.
Okay, now for our viewers who don't know much about Kanye, he sold 32.7 million albums. He's got 28.2 million people following him on Twitter. He's got $145 million in the bank, apparently. And he's married to Kim Kardashian. So between the two of them, they've really got popular culture sewn up, haven't they? So it matters when he says things like slavery was a choice. Here's exactly what he did say.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? It's like we're mentally in prison.
Well, Jason is a lecturer in African American studies.
Very true.
I'm sure you spend a great deal of time studying this subject. You must be pretty shocked.
Well, yeah, his words were shocking. I think he did have, some of his comments were not meant to be exactly as he stated them. But still, they're inexcusable. And the funny thing is I actually invited Kanye on Twitter to come sit in on my class and actually learn about slavery and Jim Crow and all the things that followed it. Because obviously, he actually needs a lesson.
DeAndra, you would admit that he's historically wrong, but his intentions perhaps were different. But do you really think that he thinks he would have done any better over those 4 centuries if he was in that position?
No. Keep in mind, slavery was it's not a choice that we had as a people. Now, the last 75 to 100 years, yeah, it's a choice. The slavery that we suffer now, like I said previously, is mental, it's emotionally, it's psychologically. He himself is suffering some type of, seemingly, over the last couple of months, emotional issues. What he's talking about was that we as African Americans need to think for ourselves and be more responsible for our own lives.
Musa.
And I just think he phrased it wrong. I think it was just inaccurate.
Can I jump in on it?
Musa, I've got to ask you, if this was said by a white person, perhaps Donald Trump, it would be instantly labeled as racist. Do you think what he said was essentially racist?
Oh, yeah.
Musa?
So, Kanye has been harping on this kind of idea for a while. So, for instance, if you listen to his album New Slaves, he talks about how black people are kind of are enslaving ourselves by giving in to the system and letting ourselves be kind of told what to do and what to think and stuff like this. So this is like a constant thread. And I should add, by the way, like Kanye has a history of trying to reappropriate offensive symbols that African Americans would find offensive, like the Confederate flag during his last tour. It was prominently featured on all the merchandise and stuff like this because he wants to he has this thing where he tries to reappropriate a lot of these symbols of black oppression and stuff. And he even said that's kind of what he was doing.
Is it a wake-up call for people, or is it just ignorant racist comment if it was from anyone else?
Very much.
Well, I think the messenger matters. I mean, you can't. I think it's true if Donald Trump said it, it would be construed as racist. But I think that it matters that it wasn't Donald Trump and that it was Kanye West.
Okay, fine. Well, let's turn To the other half of this odd couple now, President Donald Trump. Some people say that Kanye shouldn't be supporting a president who's repeatedly been accused of being a racist himself. But is Trump racist, or are these just trumped-up charges? Let's review the evidence.
President Trump is not a racist.
A person who makes repeated racist statements is a racist.
He's not racist. He's not anti-immigrant.
It's tough to say that somebody is not racist when they're doing all the racist things.
In the courtroom of public opinion, Trump's opponents have plenty of so-called evidence that he is a racist. Much of it supplied by the man himself, even right from the beginning when he announced his candidacy.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
And then there's Muslims.
A total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Whenever you have political candidates who use this rhetoric and speech, we see an increase of hate violence against the Muslim American community.
And then there are the comments he's alleged to have made behind closed doors.
Quote, why are we having all these people from whole countries come here?
How many examples do you need of this?
And after a white supremacist event in Charlottesville turned violent, Trump was criticized for not condemning the group.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
He also lashed out at NFL players for the way they controversially chose to protest police violence against African Americans.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners say, get that son of a the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
We did not see the president talk in these kind of strident terms about the neo-fascist groups that were protesting in Charlottesville, that he's reserved this bile for these athletes who, by and large, are African-American.
Is the president right?
The president is absolutely right. As the patriot-in-chief and the commander-in-chief, he speaks for America.
Trump also questioned the heritage of his predecessor, continually demanding to see Barack Obama's birth certificate.
He has to be born in this country. There's a real question as to whether or not he was.
But Obama batted it away with his usual good humor.
Tonight, for the first time, I am releasing my official birth video.
These few examples are just the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many more. But as far as the president's concerned, it's simple. These sorts of allegations are always politically motivated.
It's the oldest play in the Democratic playbook. You're racist, you're racist. It's a tired, disgusting argument.
Well, I bet I can find someone who agrees with that. DeAndra, is Trump a racist, or are these accusations politically motivated?
Personally, my opinion is he's not a racist. He speaks his mind. He's blunt. He believes in holding people accountable for their own existence. That doesn't make you racist. We're calling it what it is. Those countries were countries. I have quite a few friends who are from the African continent, and they've all said the same thing.
DeAndra.
Not one of them have told me anything different. So what is America upset about?
Yeah.
The people from Africa tells you they come from a country.
Yeah. All right, Jason. Yeah, come on, Jason. Let's all grow up and tell the facts as it is. Jason?
Well, something tells me DeAndra doesn't know everyone from Haiti or which
Well, she doesn't need to, does she? She sees it on the news and she knows a few people. And from
he
that
wasn't
sample,
talking about the people. He's talking about the country. He's not talking about the people. He's talking about the condition and the state of the politics and the politicians in the country.
All right, let's give Jason a chance to comment, please. You've made a very strong case. Jason?
Well, again, I think DeAndra started out by talking about her opinion. And there are a couple sayings about opinions that I won't say on the air. But what I will, speaking of, crap holes, but one of the things that I will say is that opinion, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own fact. I think you laid out a couple of facts that showed that he has some issues with regard to race. And then we can talk about actual policy. So, we look at Trump's EPA, some of the things that they've done, his Justice Department and some of the policies that he supported are certainly things that seem to have a white nationalist leaning.
Musa, you got to come in.
So I don't want to jump into anyone's heart and mind and say, like, is Trump racist, is Trump not racist? I'll say a lot of his rhetoric, to me, crosses the line and seems racist. But one thing that I'll flag, though, is that doesn't necessarily mean that Trump's supporters were necessarily motivated by racism. So I would direct you, I just published an article in this journal, The American Sociologist, called Race and the Race for the White House on social research in the age of Trump. And what I show is that a lot of the studies that ostensibly prove that Trump voters are racist, there's a lot less there than people think. And in fact, there's a lot of like chronic errors underlying the literature there. So I would distinguish between the sort of stuff Trump said and the motivations of Trump voters, because they aren't necessarily as close
Jason.
as people might think.
Can I? Well, so with Musa, I think he's absolutely correct. The only thing that I would say is that we'd have to go back and define racism. I think a lot of times we equate racism with hatred, and I think that there are many different types of racism. There's racism in neglect. There's racism in many different things. And I don't honestly think that Trump goes to sleep every night thinking about how much he hates black people. But I do think that he prioritizes certain people and certain lives ahead of people of color, if they're black, if they're Muslim, if they're Latino.
Jason, I'm sorry to intrude, but you're making a very nuanced point here. Behind closed doors with your buddies, do you guys consider Trump a racist or not?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let me tell you. Let me give you an example now. A few people who have done extremely well in life, overachievers, if you like, starting with Ben Carson, African Americans who would speak up for Donald Trump.
He is actually a very intelligent man who cares deeply about America.
He should be president of the United States. Why are people mad at the people? Because this is who the people want to be president.
People shy away from realness. This man didn't do nothing. Hey, listen, if y'all didn't want the man in the White House, y'all should have voted the other way.
Donald's a friend of mine. I just think he says it wrong. I think if he can reword some of the things he says and put it in business form, it'll really make sense. But Donald's like a straight up guy.
Jason, there's some real African-American heroes there who say Donald is a straight-up guy.
Well, I don't know that I would argue that Floyd Mayweather or Mike Tyson are African-American heroes. And I would also say that I don't take my political advice from Mike Tyson. But, I do think that, of course, they personally know him and they have a personal relationship with him, but I'm talking more about his policies, his ideas, and what he's saying as president of the United States. Some of it reflects some animus, and there are even hate websites like the Daily Stormer that have said that Trump is giving them the old wink wink, and that's a quote from the founder of the Daily Stormer.
Okay.
So I think that he's got some race issues.
All right, Jason. Look, well, that brings us back to Kanye. One of the questions we posed at the beginning, is he serious or just having a meltdown?
Do you feel that I'm do you feel that I'm being free and I'm thinking free?
I actually don't think you're thinking anything. I think what you're doing right now is actually the absence of thought. And the reason why I feel like that is because Kanye, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. But there is fact and real world, real life consequence behind everything that you just said. And while you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives. We have to deal with the marginalization that has come from the 400 years of slavery that you said for our people was a choice. Frankly, I'm disappointed, I'm appalled, and brother, I am unbelievably hurt by the fact that you have morphed into something, to me, that's not real.
Well, let's go back to DeAndra. DeAndra, the fact is that gentleman there made some great points to Kanye, and Kanye looked really rocked by that. He really had to think about what he'd been doing, and he had no particular answer for him.
Perhaps the gentleman was upset and was hurt, and I don't think that was Kanye's intention. Again, he divulged some very inaccurate information. We have not been slaves for 400 years. His
Yeah, but is he having a meltdown or not?
I don't believe he was having a meltdown. He was simply expressing his thoughts and his opinions on what he feels. When did be an American citizen mean that you are not entitled to vote how you want to vote, support who you want to support, think how you want to think
Okay.
and feel how you want to feel. I mean, this is America, right? Land of the free.
Absolutely. Here's a tweet from Kanye 2024. What do you think, Musa? You think we're going to have Kanye run for president in 2024?
I hope so. He was originally saying 2020, but then after he met with Trump, he decided he would delay it so he didn't have to run against the Donald.
You predicted that Donald was going to win, but a lot of people didn't predict that. Do you think Kanye would be a strong candidate?
Oh, God knows. Like that's too far out for me to even like think about right now. But
okay, Musa, we'll leave it in the hands of God then. Now, we asked at the beginning of the show, what do Kanye and Trump possibly have in common? Perhaps it's their musical abilities. Here's the Donald doing his thing.
You used to call me on the cell phone. Call me on the cell phone.
All right, well, we finally made DeAndra Smith laugh. DeAndra, you appreciate the Donald, his politics, his dancing, the whole thing. That's great. DeAndra Smith, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Also, Jason Nichols, thank you. And finally, Musa Al-Gharbi, thank you all for your heartfelt contributions to the Nexus today. That is all we have time for this week. Thank you for watching, and see you next week. Goodbye.